Emergency, which service? What's the address of the fire?
A killer who thought he'd covered his tracks and fooled investigators.
Is it possible to get away with murder? What does a killer do after committing the most heinous of crimes? Do they carry on as normal and hide in plain sight?
He set fire to that property and walked out.
He came across like you could pass him in the street, he could be anybody.
Or go on the run?
We've got to find this man. We need to identify him.
How do the actions of a killer after their crime influence the police investigation? By focusing on the aftermath, we unpick the mindset of a killer, understand the motive, and reveal what the killer did next. Peter Fassily grows up in Greater Manchester to an Italian family of 3 siblings.
He was a character, always having a dry sense of humour. He was one that helped me ride my bike for the first time. He was 7 years older than me, but was always in the kitchen, even when Mum's making things, especially when my Mum was doing cherry pie. He used to always try to help, but then he used to help himself to a bit when no one was looking. He was a laugh, you know, he was all right. He just got on well.
He was always quite happily and bubbly, always had something to do, and would tell you sort of what he was up to and sort of where he was going.
He was always on the go, always joking. You couldn't say anything bad about him. Any problems, he'd give you his last penny to help anybody. You know, he was always there for anyone.
At the age of 58, Peter moves from Manchester to the quiet suburban neighbourhood of Northolt, on the outskirts of London.
I mean, down this street, we're quite neighbourly and friendly, and we know most of the people. So, yeah, there is a good community spirit around here.
I've lived here 60 years. It's pleasant, you know. Most people say good morning, good evening, and do help if you get stuck in something.
Peter never married or started a family and lived alone in a semi-detached bungalow. Although he enjoyed the solitary life, he remained a friendly face in the community. And as a computer technician by trade, was always ready to lend a helping hand.
Peter always loved computers from day one, anything electronic. He was always on the go, fixing anything. Anyone had a problem, they asked him and he'd mend it. He didn't even have to blink, he just could do it blindfolded, if you say. He always just knew what to do.
And as a single gay man, it was his computer Peter turned to meet new people. But in the world of online dating, not everyone is as they seem. The residents of Rubens Road are awoken by a raging fire.
Emergency, which service? What's the address of the fire?
The authorities are alerted and on the scene in a matter of minutes.
I was upstairs in bed and all the sirens and whatnot. And I thought, what the devil's happening out there? It wasn't one fire engine, it was about 3 or 4.
All I remember is seeing smoke and thinking that, oh, someone's having, like, I don't know, like a barbecue, and it's getting blacker and blacker.
Neighbours soon realised the burning house is that belonging to Peter Fassily.
There was police there was ambulance, the fire brigade was still there for a good couple of hours, and it was just awful, like just completely burnt, like black, and not how you remember seeing the house.
When fire officers enter the property, they find Peter inside, but they quickly realise he's already dead.
They rang me when I just broke down. I just couldn't believe it. It was just, you just wouldn't think, you know, you're chatting the other day and no, I'm not going to see him again. It's horrible.
Authorities inspect the house, looking for any clues to establish a cause of death and what started the fire.
What police would be looking for is, was there a break-in? Are there signs of any break-in? Anything about the victim? Was there anything suspicious? Did any of the neighbours hear anything?
The post-mortem results come back clear, suggesting nothing out of the ordinary.
When a pathologist and a forensic pathologist come to a case, you're given a background, you're told what the circumstances are as they're understood at the time, and that informs your investigation. On the face of it, this looked very simple. There is evidence that Mr. Fasoli has inhaled smoke, so he was alive when that fire was burning. We have an older man with underlying disease in the heart. We have a house fire with all of the fumes and the stress that would produce. And conclusion, a very reasonable conclusion, would be that that man has died as a result of a combination of smoke inhalation and the heart disease he has.
Next, the fire brigade make their assessment.
There was an investigation into that fire once the body had been discovered, and it was fairly swiftly determined to be an accidental fire, an accidental death, and essentially the case was closed.
We know that Peter's got a heart problem. There was no disruption in the property to speak of. There was no break-in. There was no one calling 999 because they could hear Peter screaming. So all those factors together, and with the fire brigade, suspecting there was electrical fault with the light bulb, then that was a natural conclusion that Peter had died as a result of an accident.
Investigators concluded Peter Fasoli, a 58-year-old with heart problems, had died in an accidental blaze.
As news breaks, Peter's family and friends were surprised by the circumstances of his death, but had to accept the verdict.
There was nothing I could do about it, and I just had to get on dealing with all the funeral, because fires happened, and they did say they thought it was an electrical fault, and that's all they could give us at the time.
Very strange. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I remember thinking, how did it happen?
I just remember walking past with the dogs in the morning thinking how sad it is, and not really knowing what had happened, just that there'd been a fire and the chap wasn't there anymore.
And the neighbours had good reason to be suspicious. Almost 2 years after his uncle's death, Peter's nephew Chris had boxed up some of Peter's belongings, which had been salvaged from the fire. One of these items was Peter's hard drive.
I'd looked through the computer expecting to find the research he'd done on the family tree. What I found was a video file that seemed to take up the majority of space on the hard drive. I'd opened the video file and it just seemed to be some camera footage of Peter just sort of sat in his house watching telly, just eating tea.
But when Chris looks at the date of the video file, he notices something important.
I'd looked at the timestamp on the file and found it was the day of the fire, and I'd sort of flicked through hoping just to find nearest to the end of the file maybe what caused the fire, and an explanation. Was it the light bulb? Was it something else in the flat? But what I soon sort of found that there was somebody else that had been in the flat that day with him.
Chris had discovered webcam footage showing his uncle was not alone on the night he died. Who is this person? And could he know more about the fire that occurred that night in Peter's flat?
As he walked in, sort of, he spoke casually with Peter. They appeared to know each other and appeared to have met before.
Chris skipped to the end of the file to see if it would reveal clues to the fire which killed his uncle.
What sort of seemed odd on there, where I'd skipped to towards the end of the file, was sort of Peter's flat. Like it had been ransacked. There was pieces of his stereo sat on the sofa, pieces of computer that clearly been moved. I sort of began to skip around the file, trying to see what had sort of happened. Maybe there was sort of a burglary, something had gone on.
Immediately, Chris was suspicious and contacted the police. Who was this man And did he know more about his uncle's untimely death? What police don't know yet is that there's a sinister link between the death of Peter Fasoli and one 1,000 miles away in Rome. Italian authorities are called to the home of a 67-year-old retired tour guide, Vincenzo Iale, in a seaside village on the outskirts of Rome. Neighbors have become concerned when Vincenzo's light remained on in his home for an entire week.
During this week, he didn't go at 3 or 4 meetings that he had with friends.
But when police arrive, they walk into an horrific scene. Vincenzo has been murdered.
Diverse ferite d'arma da taglio sul corpo di Vincenzo Iale, 68 anni, della provincia di Brescia, ma da molto tempo residente a Tor Vaianica, ritrovato senza vita nella sua abitazione sul litorale romano, ieri pomeriggio in via Mar dei Coralli. Ora si indaga sul passato del pensionato, che ha lavorato come tour operator e per questo ha viaggiato molto, anche se dalla descrizione dei vicini di casa emerge il ritratto di un uomo solitario.
Italy correspondent Michael Day is hot on the case.
I was in the Foreign Press Association in Rome one morning and I heard some journalists discussing something. It sounded quite interesting. A police officer, a carabinieri officer, described the cord tied around the person's neck. And he talked about the ferocity of the crime. He seemed quite shocked by what he saw, and he said other officers were as well.
The results of the post-mortem reveal Vincenzo was killed a week before his body was found.
After Mr. Iale's post-mortem examination, it was clear that he had died of a homicidal ligature strangulation. He had stab wounds, but they hadn't really contributed, and his cause of death was given as asphyxia due to ligature strangulation.
When Italian investigators examine the scene of crime, they find a robbery has taken place.
His bank cards had been stolen. Subsequently, cash was taken from his account, so it appeared that his PIN number had been given up, which led the investigators to think he probably may have been tortured as well.
But with no sign of a break-in, did Vincenzo know his killer?
My name's Dr. Jane Monckton-Smith, and I'm a forensic criminologist. So my work is focused on homicide prevention, so I look at patterns and behaviours of killers to see if we can intervene and stop them. Well, the first thing police will do is look for somebody who's had contact with the victim. They will probably go to a lot of electronic and passive data to verify what that person has said and to track their movements in a chronology to see who they can place at the scene at the time.
When the body of Vincenzo Iale was found, they searched for, they investigate who were the person who contacted for the last time Vincenzo Iale on the social network, on the emails, on the phones.
When Italian police check Vincenzo's phone, they discover he was last in contact with a 26-year-old man. This man is a British national called Jason Marshall. Italian police need to find out who Jason Marshall is and his movements since arriving in the country a week or two previously. They put Jason Marshall under surveillance using his mobile GPS signal. And then using CCTV, they quickly discover Jason Marshall has been using Vincenzo's credit card since his murder a week ago.
They watched Marshall going to the cash machine and use the credit card of the victim.
But detectives cannot arrest Jason Marshall yet. They need to uncover more evidence if they are to link him with Vincenzo Iale's murder. It's been 1 day since the body of Vincenzo Iale was discovered by Italian police. Detectives have followed Jason Marshall to a flat belonging to a local man in the Casal Marina district in Rome.
Investigators were tracking Marshall. They have seen Marshall entering into the flat. They were outside the building.
Detectives have been outside the building for 4 hours. But with the shift ending, they leave the scene, leaving Jason Marshall inside. Neighbors are alerted to the sound of a blood-curdling scream in the apartment where Marshall is last seen. When police arrive, they find a 55-year-old man injured and tortured to near death. He describes his attacker and says his name is Jason Marshall. Jason Marshall is a wanted man. Police know he's dangerous. And he's 2 hours ahead of them. The hunt is on, and they need to establish what he will do next. Police track Jason Marshall using his phone to a bus route, leaving the local area.
Everybody these days has an electronic footprint. We leave it with our, cash cards, we leave it with our phones, we leave it with our cars, and it's very easy for the police these days to track who has been where and when.
Police manage to stop the bus and arrest Jason Marshall. And what they find on him is alarming.
When Marshall was arrested, he had on him various items that he'd used to disguise himself as a police officer, a retractable metal truncheon, a pistol that he put onto his utility belt.
They found on him a police baton, a false gun, and the badge of the British Embassy. He said to investigators that he had diplomatic immunity because he worked for the British Embassy in Rome.
Yet when authorities look into Jason Marshall's background, they discover he did not work for the British Embassy. Police also uncover more items from him that are crucial.
There were various items that the police recovered that clearly linked him to these 2 attacks in Italy.
Once they'd apprehended him, they found possessions belonging to the murder victim Ayale.
They found on him a remote control with a key. And they tried to use this remote control, and they found that this was the remote control and the key of the gate for entering in the home of the first victim, Vincenzo Ayale.
Jason Marshall is arrested and charged with the murder of Vincenzo Ayale. He is also charged with the attempted murder of a 55-year-old man earlier that night.
È Jason Peter Marshall, il 25enne inglese di Greenwich che i carabinieri del nucleo investigativo di Frascati hanno arrestato per il delitto del 68enne. 2 sere fa lo stesso killer era stato arrestato dalla polizia per un'altra aggressione a Roma. Stessa dinamica come quella del delitto, ma fortunatamente con un esito differente.
Now it's up to the Italian justice system to decide his fate. Italy correspondent Michael Day covers the trial of Jason Marshall.
We decided to go down to the court in Frosinone, which is about 70 kilometres south of Rome. We got on the train and went down there, and we sat through the case.
Francesco Bruscini is appointed by the Italian state to be Marshall's lawyer.
First time I met Marshall. Marshall was very quiet, and he said in every minute, I am innocent. And so I believed him.
As the trial opens, the court hears the details of the attacks on both Vincenzo Ayale and the other victim. In both instances, Marshall presents himself as an MI5 intelligence officer. Psychiatric tests presented to court claim Marshall has psychosis, delusions, Asperger's, and a personality disorder.
And from the brief time I actually watched him, he did seem quite disturbed. He seemed very angry. Sometimes he seemed quite far away. And at a certain point, the accused started shouting at the judge, and he said, "Oh, for God's sake, get on with it, I've been doing this for months." Incredibly angry, like he thought he shouldn't be there, like he was the victim in all this. It was very strange.
As the trial proceeds, Marshall's behavior becomes ever more erratic.
He said, "I am the incarnation of the Archangel Gabriel, that is the messenger of God. I am here for a prophecy. The jail is full of demons, but I am here and I am a guardian against the evil."
Marshall is an individual who's been classified as experiencing psychosis. A psychotic episode can make you very paranoid. It can make you believe that you are a completely different person. Maybe you're Jesus. So it's a very real condition where you act outside the realms of normality, and also you are not necessarily culpable for those actions because you are not within your right mind.
The court is not convinced by Jason Marshall's defense. With the evidence stacked up against him, Marshall is found guilty of both murder and attempted murder. However, due to his psychiatric report, he is given a lesser sentence of 16 years imprisonment in Italy. Jason Marshall has been jailed for his horrific crimes in Italy. As yet, he's unaware that back in the UK, police uncover evidence linking him to another murder. The murder of Peter Fassily in Northolt, London. British national Jason Marshall is serving life in prison in Italy for murder and attempted murder. But his past is soon to catch up with him. Chris Murgatroyd is researching the family tree on a hard drive of a computer recovered from his uncle, Peter Fassily's house, following a fire which killed Peter 22 months earlier. But Chris has discovered a webcam file revealing his uncle wasn't alone on the night he died. He had invited another man over, and their whole meeting was captured on Peter's webcam.
As he walked in, sort of, he spoke casually with Peter. They appeared to know each other and appeared to have met before. From memory, they did say about, I think Peter said to the man that he'd missed him.
But Chris notices something distinctive about the way this man is dressed.
He appeared in the video to be dressed as a police officer. He sort of came in, he had sort of a black jacket on. When he took this off, he had a badge hanging from his neck. He also had a gun holster and stated to Peter that he was from the police.
Far from being alone on the night he supposedly died in an accidental fire, Peter Fassily had actually invited a date over to his home. This man was Jason Marshall. And it appears his intentions for that evening were very different to Peter's.
And sort of slowly slipping through and skipping back and forth, it became quite clear that something seriously wrong was going on.
Chris immediately contacts the police, and the true horror of the contents of the tape are revealed.
As the clip goes on, it obviously turns very dark and very sinister very quickly as Marshall takes control of the situation. Marshall demands that he hands over his PIN number to his bank account, threatens him with violence, to cut out his tongue even, and then starts to abuse him and to essentially to torture him.
At this point, Peter seemed very uncomfortable, was asking for this to stop. And it sort of just carried on.
Peter endures what appears to be a sadistic torture for hours.
did he get out of this? Was this part of the role play? Did he come away from this alive? Did he leave and then the fire broke out? So it's a point of having to know.
The video shows Jason Marshall inject Peter Fassely up to 4 times with a liquid and then smother him with a pillow before wrapping cling film around his face, suffocating him.
The way he suffocated him, I just can't go into it. It's always that bit sets me off. It's just the last bit I can't cope with. I still can't now. I can't do it. Sorry.
One of the most unsettling parts of this case is that the classic FM radio station is playing throughout this scene as it unfolds over the various hours. And so you have the juxtaposition of a horrific murder happening in front of you and the strains of classic FM playing in the background.
The fact that this beautiful music, this calming, soothing, incredible tunes would be being played in the last moments of an individual's horrific murder, the juxtaposition is harrowing.
Peter is now unconscious. The video continues to capture Jason Marshall in the house. Although Peter is not moving, his guest continues to remain in roleplay.
This is quite shocking. Even after he'd suffocated his victim and he was lying either dead or dying on the floor, that Marshall kept speaking into the radio.
He's pretending to be on there, calling someone to help him, calling police officers or calling someone, talking about, you know, I need your help. But yeah, no one was going to come and help, were they? He knew he was going to leave solely for dead. And yet he continued with his psychotic ideas.
The video recording shows Jason Marshall's behavior becoming increasingly unusual.
He then did something truly bizarre.
He actually did something over his body. Bearing in mind, he wouldn't know that the webcam was on or being recorded.
He did a half-hearted cross across his chest, and he uttered words in Latin, which mean in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It was a very, very bizarre thing to do.
Peter Fassely is dead, murdered by Jason Marshall, who then appears to snap out of his roleplay and remove any evidence of being at the scene.
He then spent 10-15 minutes cleaning up the scene, tidying up his possessions, wiping down the areas that he might have touched, flushing the toilet 4 times as he was obviously cleaning up and getting rid of any evidence that he could.
Marshall sprinkled some kind of inflammatory material on the hob.
And then after a minute or so, you can actually hear the flames starting to burn. And it's at that point that the tape stops to roll.
He set fire to that property and walked out and left Peter, our victim, for dead.
In January 2013, police had ruled Peter Fassely's death to be an accident. But now, 22 months on, they have evidence he was in fact murdered.
I sort of broke down a bit. I didn't really know at that point where to go, of where do we go from here. It changed what we thought was a simple accidental death to somebody had done this to my Uncle Peter.
I couldn't comprehend it. It was like it wasn't in reality. I couldn't believe it. Everything was going through my head. You know, why, who, how, you know, and I just didn't know.
Police have a killer caught on camera. They need to find Jason Marshall, and they need to find him fast.
Once you find out who he is, you look into all his background, intelligence background, all the databases you go to, you know, social networking, everything.
When police look at Peter's digital activities, they notice Marshall had arranged to meet Peter via social media site Badoo on the day he was murdered.
Peter Fassely was gay, And part of his lifestyle was going online and meeting young people.
They'd met up once before in the December, and that was actually their second meeting where the victim had invited Marshall to come to his flat.
But as police delve deeper into the pair's online communications, they discover that just hours before they were due to meet, Marshall messaged Peter to cancel.
Marshall took a few steps that were clearly calculated to try and cover up his involvement in the death.
He continued to contact Peter Fasoli on Badoo, suggesting that, we didn't meet up that night, I'm sorry I let you down, covering his tracks, so putting police off his scent, if you like.
He sent a message essentially saying, I'm sorry I couldn't come last night, but he was laying the groundwork for an alibi.
Jason Marshall had tried to cover his tracks, making out he had never met Peter on the day of his death. But police have the pair on camera, and now they uncover something else. When police contact Peter's bank, they discover someone used his bank card to withdraw cash. The culprit was caught on the ATM's CCTV camera, and it clearly shows Jason Marshall.
He withdrew £780 from his account, so that that was another part of the murder, that he'd done it essentially to gain money out of the victim's bank account.
And when police look further into the transactions on Peter's account, they discover Marshall left the country just 4 days after he murdered Peter Fasoli.
The Metropolitan Police had found that some plane tickets had been bought to Italy using money from Peter's account, or from Peter's name, under the name of Jason Marshall.
Only a few days later, he left the country. He booked himself a flight to Italy. He booked himself a return back to the UK.
But it appears Marshall never took that return flight. Instead, he stayed in Rome.
A killer has slipped through the net. And in Italy, he goes on to commit 2 more heinous crimes. 22 months on, UK police are finally on his trail and ready to bring him back to face justice. But who is Jason Marshall? And what turned this Londoner into a cold-blooded serial killer?
An arrest warrant was issued for Jason Marshall. He was flown over from Italy to the UK, and then he was arrested for Mr. Fasoli's murder when he landed at Heathrow.
All that evidence was there on that computer, so that would have been the evidence to bring him back to this country and charge him and put him before the court.
Yes, a bizarre and gruesome case, Jane, which almost never came to court. The story goes back to January 2013, when Peter Fasoli's body was found at his house where there'd been a fire. Now, initially, investigators ruled...
Jason Marshall faces trial at the Old Bailey for the murder of 58-year-old Peter Fasoli. When Marshall enters the dock, the British public first set their eyes on this serial killer.
One of the striking things about Jason Marshall is how calm and calculated he seemed. He was very calm, very measured. When he gave evidence, he explained his story with very little emotion and obviously no regrets or apologies for what he'd done.
He came across like you could pass him in the street, he could be anybody. He sat there without a reaction on his face. But to me, it sort of made me quite angry, sat in the gallery watching him, to not see any sort of look of remorse on his face.
I stared him out. My way of dealing with it was staring at him.
As Jason Marshall stands trial, the shocking truth behind his crimes comes to light. With 2 murders and an attempted murder committed in just 1 month, what could have turned this man into a violent, sadistic killer?
Jason Marshall was taken into foster care when he was 10 years old, so a difficult upbringing. And there was some evidence during the case of him suffering from Asperger's syndrome and having various learning difficulties.
As Marshall grew into a young adult, he continued to lead a chaotic life.
He didn't really have an ordered life. He didn't have future-oriented goals. He kind of was a man who lived in the moment, which is the way a lot of people with personality disorders might live their life.
But Marshall experiences a brief moment of stability.
In 2012, he held down a job during the Olympics, we believe as a cleaner. But when he was employed, he seemed to be, when he had kind of a regimented, getting up in the morning and going to work, that really helped him. He went to work, he had some purpose.
However, his deteriorating mental health catches up with him.
He had depression, he clearly was psychotic, clearly had a lot of mental health issues. And then when he lost his job, he hit the bottle, then he spiraled into a depression, psychotic, and the mental health issues then were enhanced because he was drinking far too much. And then this is where he spiraled and he was isolated. And I suppose that's where the real concern is.
No longer employed, Marshall decided to create a job of his own.
He would go around impersonating law enforcement agents or police officers, travelling around on the tube, apparently trying to solve crimes and catch miscreants. He had gone out, tooled up with his utility belt and his fake police badge, and he'd carried with him a small terrier dog, which he pretended was his sniffer dog.
But this unusual behaviour soon spirals out of control. In Marshall's chaotic mind, the lines between what was real and what was fantasy began to merge into one.
Marshall would fantasise, act out and seemingly believe that he was a police officer, but he would portray this as it was his absolute fact and try to convince and coerce others into the same belief system.
And even on the night that he killed Peter Fasoli, he was there equipped, if you like, and he believed he had grandiose ideas about who he was. And I truly believed that he actually thought he was either an agent or a police officer, and he was in his own little world.
Is this what turned him into a killer?
I strongly believe that Marshall was an individual who was born with a predisposition, DNA-wise, to be a killer. His sexual gratification is gained through making others helpless and vulnerable. He gains his pleasure from watching his victims in distress and pain. That's what turns him on. That's what's terrifying about this individual.
The trial into the murder of Peter Fasoli comes to a close. Jason Marshall is found guilty. He is sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 39 years behind bars.
Seeing Jason Marshall brought to justice and put in front of a jury sort of did really help close that chapter for me, knowing that the person responsible had been found and brought to justice for what he did to Peter.
But we have got justice for what he's done, and he stays in there and he suffers. He just stays in there. What he's done, what he's put everybody through, not just our family, but everybody else's.
This case is a one of a kind. It was really shocking to see the footage being played in court. One of the most unusual things I think I've seen in my career as a court reporter.
With the case now closed, it is still hard to understand how authorities missed a murder.
The question does come of what investigation was done around then.
It's quite extraordinary that whoever investigated this scene overlooked these key pieces of evidence.
But there must have been some signs on his body that wasn't just a smoke. To me, it felt like if he's restrained him, there should have been some restraint marks showing up on his body, on his skin. That always played on my mind, but to me, I don't think they looked as much as they should have done. That's going back on it in my mind.
I think what shocks me about this case is how sad it was that Peter Fasoli died and it was accepted that it was an accidental death. Because Marshall wasn't arrested for that, he went on to murder and attempt to murder somebody else.
For Peter's family, the horror of watching his death unfold on camera is something that will live with them forever.
It made me, at the time, quite sick in wondering if I'd have found this video earlier, could I have stopped those others? But every time that I sort of close my eyes trying to go to sleep, it is sort of, I get the images of seeing sort of Peter's flat, and sort of finding it hard then to actually get myself to sleep, just thinking about that footage. It still sticks in. If I think about it, I can still see the room as it is from the video footage.
I do miss him. He'll always be my brother no matter what. No one can take that away from me. And I've got memories that no one can take. He can't take them memories away from me. He'd be my brother.
Having almost got away with the murder of Peter Fasoli, there's one burning question. Could Jason Marshall have killed more?
It has crossed my mind and does make me still think, is there something that Jason Marshall did prior to this? Was there other offences that we still not yet know about?
If he's done that to my brother, done it to somebody else, he must have done it to someone before. And that's all I kept going through my head. He can't be the only one. I think he's done it before.
Emergency, what's your emergency?
Detectives say the dead woman is yet to be formally identified, but it's believed she's 49 and from Bridlington.
Is it possible to get away with murder? What does a killer do after committing the most heinous of crimes?
This crime, it was unnecessary, it was brutal.
Do they carry on as normal and hide in plain sight? Or go on the run?
It was scary. Just don't know what he could do if we were desperate. And I knew it were him.
He's on the run from the police. This man is angry.
How do the actions of a killer after their crime influence the police investigation?
We need to speak to this man as a priority in relation to that murder investigation, and we would consider him dangerous.
By focusing on the aftermath, we unpick the mindset of a killer.
He turned around, he had the knife in his hand.
Understand the motive and reveal what the killer did next.
Terry Carter met his wife, Bay, an artist at a concert in Nottingham in 1993. They quickly fell in love, and 12 months later moved to Bay's native China to get married and start a family. After 20 years away, the couple returned to the UK to open a guest house with their 2 children and settled in the Yorkshire coastal town of Bridlington.
The community of Bridlington is actually a seaside resort, so there's quite a mix of people up there. It's quite close-knit in many respects. You know, it's a very busy town. There's a lot of guest houses down there. Marshall Avenue, it's a little way from the actual promenade.
The guest house itself was fairly typical in lots of ways. It was very much the sort of place I would have expected to have found in a seaside town.
Terry looked after the bookings and front of house, while Bay worked hard behind the scenes, ensuring the rooms remained comfortable for their guests.
Bay Carter was a nice, friendly, trusting lady of 49 years old. She had no enemies.
But But life for this family was about to be ripped apart in the most brutal fashion.
It was a quiet morning at the hotel, with just one guest having checked in the day before, and 2 more due to arrive that day.
Terry, he'd been to visit his mum in hospital, Ray Carter, that spent the day putting up curtains, I think in the dining area, sewing.
When Terry Carter arrived back at the guest house that night, he expected to be greeted by his wife. Instead, all he found was a deserted hotel.
After trying to locate her in the guest house, he'd rung her mobile phone, which rang out in the living room. And he noticed that room 5 was locked, which was unusual. Unoccupied rooms weren't normally locked. He came down to see if he could find the master keys.
With no sign of his wife, Terry started to panic. After a frantic search, he found the set of master keys. When he opened the door to room 5, he was met by the most horrific sight.
Hello, police emergency. What's your emergency?
Terry had found the lifeless body of his wife, Bay. She had been subjected to a vicious attack. The 49-year-old landlady had been stabbed in the chest, suffering a fatal wound to the heart. Senior Investigating Officer Detective Superintendent Matt Baldwin was assigned to the case.
There's so many things going through your mind to understand exactly what we've got. Visiting a scene and seeing for yourself is the best way, in my view, to do that, to understand the layout of a premises, to understand the opportunities forensically, and also what may have happened inside that building.
Police descend on the scene and confirm the discovery of the dead body of Bay Carter.
Bay's body was on the floor of room 5, between a chest of drawers and a bed, literally laid on the floor, her feet facing the door, and her arms crossed across her chest.
The victim had been either kicked or stamped on her face and head. A knife had penetrated through the sternum, that's the breastbone, which can be up to ½ an inch thick.
I'm always shocked by the capacity of human beings to deliver extreme violence on others.
The next morning, the news is made public. Police launch a murder investigation.
Residents in Marshall Avenue say they were woken in the middle of the night by blue flashing lights and the sound of the police helicopter.
Bay Carter was found by her husband in the bed and breakfast they ran together. Police has officers with Mrs. Carter's husband and children.
As an investigation begins, police need to ask who would want Bay Carter dead. They start by focusing on those closest to Bay.
This is a very strong statistic. 2 a week, on average, women killed by a former partner, which always puts a partner or a former partner at the top of the list of suspects. That must have put quite a lot of attention on Bay's husband.
Terry Carter is questioned by police.
Terry obviously gave an account to us, and it was quite clear that he was unaware of what had happened to Bay Carter in the guest house, and he'd been elsewhere doing some work on bookings and such like.
Police verify Terry's account, and he is ruled out as a suspect. Who else could be behind this brutal murder?
No one knew who had done it, why they'd done it, but obviously there's a lot of shock. You know, she was well liked.
Having ruled out Bay's husband, Terry, police need to find a suspect. They've established there were 3 guests staying at the hotel at the time of the murder. 2 of them, cyclists, have been accounted for, but there's a 3rd who appears to have vanished from the scene. Police urgently need to track this person down.
Yeah, there were belongings of his still in the room. Obviously, he'd left in a hurry, he'd left his belongings behind. There were items of clothing, the bed was unmade. There were items, receipts, various other bits and pieces. He clearly needed to get out of the guest house as soon as possible.
This particular visitor had booked a stay for 3 nights, but had left 2 nights early. And when he checked in, he'd used the name John Davis.
We did some very simple inquiries using police systems to understand what intelligence we had on somebody called John Davies, and also the mobile phone number given.
But these inquiries failed to turn up anything useful. The missing guest has left no trail. Police urgently need to locate him, to question him about the events on the night of Bay Carter's death. 24 hours later, the investigation takes another turn. The post-mortem has revealed some further horrifying details.
Bay Carter had no defensive injuries. She had no injuries to her hands. There wasn't evidence of a struggle of any sort.
To actually penetrate the breastbone and then for the knife to carry on into the heart, into the aorta beneath, takes a lot of force. That knife has struck the body very hard. So the stab wound to Bay Carter is in the middle of the chest, going through the breastbone. It is difficult to imagine that anybody does not know how many vital organs there are there. A stab wound in that location, the only logical conclusion is it is there to kill.
Equally disturbing was the discovery of a distinctive set of footprints on Bay's face, suggesting the killer had stamped on her before he fled.
It was delivered with real intent. Once he dragged Bay's body into room 5, he then decided to inflict facial injuries upon her, which indicated a mindset of severe violence, in my view.
He stamps on her face and he leaves his boot mark and indentation on her face. That violence was unnecessary, the deed was done, but it says something about the hostility he felt towards her in that moment, the desire to stamp her out. It's the clear message of power and control.
The killer may have left his mark, but there is one thing he has not left behind: the murder weapon. And the post-mortem has also given a clue to the type of knife used to stab Bay.
The weapon was described as a knife with a very thick blade and some very sharp serrated edges to it.
The kind of knife you can buy in any sort of DIY store.
It appears that not only did the killer bring the knife with him to the guest house, but that he has also left with it and could kill again.
He was a very dangerous individual. My fear was that he would take the opportunity to inflict further violence on some other innocent member of the public.
This type of killing is always a concern for the police. They were dealing with a very dangerous individual, and there would have been immense pressure on them to identify who that person was.
Police have a missing man and a name: John Davis. As for the killer, a profile is starting to emerge. Police know this person is violent, potentially still has the murder weapon, and is no longer on the scene. But suddenly, the police get a vital lead.
We could attribute the phone number given by John Davies to a man called John Heald.
We had a fairly recent picture from police computer systems of John Heald.
Unlike John Davis, John Heald was known to the police. Could this be Bay Carter's killer?
We knew that John Davies was in fact John Heald. He was a person who checked in, his mobile number subscribed to John Heald, not John Davies. And so we were able to use that image to look for a person fitting his description.
An all-force alert has been issued to find this man, John Heald.
We need to speak to this man as a priority in relation to that murder investigation, and we would consider him dangerous.
The police are advising people not to approach John Heald, but to call 999.
Whilst it is necessary for the police to put out public appeals when criminals are on the run, when it comes to individuals like John Heald, you're talking about a violent killer. You're talking about somebody who's willing to use a knife to brutalise a woman. It's either going to make him potentially hide because he doesn't want to be found, or it could make him strike again.
Police now need to look in detail at the movements of one man around the time of Bay Carter's murder. Where was John Heald at that moment? If Heald is the killer, police need to discover what he did next.
Bearing in mind, he had a number of hours on us by the time we started. He's left the guest house at some point prior to 10:30 that night. And my focus is on trying to not only locate him, but understand his movements from that time.
To find out how John Heald left the crime scene, police start by gathering CCTV.
CCTV is hugely important in an investigation like this. We covered thousands of hours of CCTV footage, not only from premises such as shops and pubs, council-run CCTV images of streets, but also private CCTV from people's private premises along streets in Bridlington.
And it's the CCTV which throws police their next vital clue in trying to track Heald down.
We recovered CCTV footage of him on the day he arrived in Bridlington buying a mobile phone from a Tesco store. We were able to get the number of that mobile phone from Tesco's, the phone that then became important to our inquiry rather than his previous telephone, which he stopped using.
With time ticking and Bay's killer still on the loose, police throw resources at the manhunt. There's now 150 officers across 2 counties on the trail of John Heald. Traces on the new mobile suggest Heald is heading to South Yorkshire, an area he's familiar with. Then suddenly, it all goes quiet.
John Heald took the decision that to evade capture, he would turn off his mobile phone, seek no contact with anybody. He'd gone off grid, so to speak.
Police are already 4 days behind Heald. They are now forced to resort to old-fashioned, hands-on detective work, appealing for witnesses, making door-to-door inquiries, and offering a reward for sightings.
We had significant search parties, police search advisors, and officers searching a wide area for John Heald. We were relying on public assistance, sightings of John Heald, and we put out a £10,000 reward to try and assist with that. And we were following up every sighting that we got of him.
South Yorkshire Police say they've had almost 250 calls from the public in response to their appeal for help into the murder of Bridlington B&B landlady Bay Carter. Police have been looking for the 53-year-old from Rotherham for a week now.
We received hundreds of reports from members of the public, sightings of John Heald all over the country. And all made with good faith, but nevertheless, those sightings create a huge amount of work, and we had to spend time ensuring that we understood whether those sightings were valid or not.
In this instance, police have to put themselves into the mind of a killer. What does a killer do next?
Heald's a man with a history of violence. He's on the run from the police. This man is challenged. This man is angry. There's somebody who's very used to using violence and very willing to use violence.
And when you're looking for a killer, you're really concerned that they're going to commit further offences.
Suddenly, new information comes to light, which reveals where Heald headed to on the night of the attack on Bay.
This image is really interesting. It shows John Heald entering the railway station at Bridlington at 22:35 hours on Friday, the 18th of July. And we know that at this time, Bay's body is in room 5 at the Moorland Guest House.
CCTV shows Heald boarding the train at around 10:45 p.m. on the night of the killing.
He looks relatively calm. He's clearly focused on the journey he's going to make to get back to South Yorkshire. He's drinking from a bottle of vodka on the train.
Police watch as Heald leaves the train at Beverley, a town 20 miles away from Bridlington. Then, the trail goes cold.
Approximately 11 o'clock at night, and the doorbell rang. And there was a guy stood there wanting a room for the night. He'd missed his connection. He came in and I went to get the key for him and took him up to the room.
This visitor is John Heald. As yet, he is unknown to the public. Just another guest wanting a room for the night.
So we both walked into the room and then I shut the door behind me. His demeanour was quite agitated, and he was also telling me that he would be getting a very early train. He would be leaving about 5 o'clock in the morning, which I also thought was a bit odd because there isn't a train from Beverley at that time in the morning.
Heald settles down for the night. This hotel owner has no idea she has a killer under her roof, and that just 1 hour earlier, John Heald had brutally stabbed Bay Carter to death. How had John Heald evaded police capture for 7 days? We're about to discover where Heald went after the trail went cold. What did this killer do next? Having caught a train from Bridlington to Beverley, near Hull, Heald books into a guest house opposite the train station for the night. The landlady, Jane Scott, has no idea she is harbouring a killer.
He came down and said he'd put the wrong mobile number on his form, so he'd obviously written a mobile number down that he probably didn't want us to have. He asked my husband if there was anywhere open to get a drink, which made John think a bit, oh, well, had he been drinking, or because he seemed very agitated. So then he went out of the front door, and that was the last we saw of him.
He got up early the next morning, got in a taxi outside Beverley railway station to Hull Paragon station, where he got a train to Doncaster.
Heald is heading in the direction of his hometown, Rotherham. On the way, he makes a stop at an area of South Yorkshire well known to him, Mexborough.
Most criminals like to operate in what we call comfort zones, and one of the reasons is they know all the escape routes, they know where the police are likely to be, they know where the CCTV cameras are. He knows all of the hiding places, and he knows, most importantly, where not to go.
Heald knows it's likely the police will have tracked his movements from Bridlington to Beverley. He knows he won't be able to stay ahead of them for too long. He's left a trail of clues everywhere he's been, and and now needs time to plan his next move. It's time for the game to change. So John Heald goes off-grid.
He disappeared. They couldn't find him. He'd gone completely underground. It was clear he was back in South Yorkshire, but beyond that, no one seemed to know where he might be.
Heald continues on foot in the direction of Rotherham, 5 miles west of Mexborough.
John Heald very quickly decided that he wasn't going to use a mobile phone, he wasn't going to walk around in the hours of daylight.
His only option is to lay low. For the next 4 days, Heald hides in woodland, somewhere on the outskirts of Rotherham. He knows time is running out.
Police say John Heald has been seen in the Doncaster and Rotherham areas in the last 24 hours.
Heald then sleeps rough for 5 days in woodland. Waiting for the heat to cool down, he knows that the police will be searching the addresses that he's used before, maybe seeing friends of his. So creating that distance means that maybe in a while he'll be able to go back and call on their services.
But living rough is not easy, even for a desperate hunted killer.
John Heald has evaded capture for a week, but his name and photograph are now everywhere in the Yorkshire area. Having hidden in the woods for days, what John Heald does next is surprising. He comes out of hiding.
Was it hunger, thirst, or just a need for it all to be over, which leads Heald to seek refuge in a local cafe?
Leave it with us and we'll get someone to take a look. Bye.
Yeah, we were getting a lot of calls with clearly good intent, but ultimately he had to come out of where he was. He had to try and get food.
Staff at the nearby Angels Cafe were about to receive an unwelcome customer.
Well, I was here, so I saw him from here, actually. And he just walked by and straight in.
And I knew it were him, and I just looked at my uncle and he nodded his head.
My niece said to me, "This is him."
He just walked in.
It was scary. It was quite scary when he came in. Because you don't know, do you? You just don't know what he could do if you're desperate. It looks as if he'd been living rough. He'd got a bag, Auntie Phoebe got a bag with his coat over it, mucky jeans, and his hands were filthy. As soon as he'd gone out of the door, I was straight to police because I knew it was him.
A member of the public had seen him outside and the cafe owners rang us. The police responded to that immediately and we arrested him.
53-year-old John Heald was arrested in Rotherham on Friday. Police say he's being spoken to by detectives investigating the murder of Bay Carter, who was stabbed to death 10 days ago.
For 7 days, John Heald had led the police on a merry dance across 60 miles of South Yorkshire countryside. Now they had their suspect, but they still had unanswered questions. Would Heald reveal the motive behind his actions?
Following his arrest, police discovered the area of woodland where Heald had been hiding for the past week. A search unearths important evidence, the murder weapon. But a crucial piece of the jigsaw puzzle remains missing. The clothes worn by Heald when he stabbed Bay Carter. Police begin to wonder whether Heald might have had an accomplice who had helped him dispose of the blood-soaked clothes.
We spent hours and hours reviewing CCTV images from Doncaster and the Mexborough area. We spent time looking at images from pubs in and around the location. His clothing does change, but his shoes are always the same.
With Heald now safely in custody, police get their first opportunity to question their suspect. But John Heald isn't talking.
Do you know which room number 5 is?
No comment. Have you met Bay Carter in the past?
No comment. Them injuries caused by, No comment.
During the interview stage of the investigation, John Heald took the option to say no comment to the vast majority of questions put to him.
Just as police inquiries seem to have hit a brick wall, a call comes in from a member of the public, and it changes everything. The caller is John Ward, a friend of Heald, and he claims to have evidence that John Heald was responsible for the death of Bay Carter.
John Ward was somebody who he'd known for a period of time. They would drink together, and I think he saw John Ward as somebody who he could rely on and who would support him.
John Ward tells police that on the night of the killing, he received a text message from John Heald. In this message, Heald had admitted killing the landlady, but claimed he had acted in self-defense.
John Heald explained how he'd been involved in a fracas with two men, and this lady had got involved or got in the way, and he had stabbed her and killed her.
In Humberside, John Heald has been charged with killing Bay Carter, but he's still refusing to cooperate with police.
Fingerprint on the door frame of room 5 has been identified as your fingerprint, so tell me about that.
Well, when I walk past room to room, you tend to nose into rooms, don't you? So I've probably touched the frames on most places, like I've done it bathroom.
Right, okay.
So my fingerprint might have been on all the doors.
Okay.
It was the door across from my room as well, because I tried that to have a look in other rooms, see what the rooms were like.
But police still don't have a motive.
And have you caused this single stab wound to her chest?
No comment.
We'd pieced together where he was, what he'd been doing, and the sequence of events. What we didn't know is why he chose to brutally attack Bay Carter, stab her in the chest with the jab saw, and leave her body in room 5.
To understand Heald's motive, police would have to go back further in time, to what brought John Heald to Bridlington in the first place.
Friday, 18th of July 2014, should have been a day like any other. But life in this coastal town changed forever, the moment a new visitor arrived at the Morayland guest house. A beloved wife and landlady, brutally killed. The suspect on the run for 7 days. But precisely what were the events leading up to the 18th of July that had brought a killer into the lives of those living on Marshall Avenue?
At that point, we didn't know what he'd done previously to come into Bridlington.
John Heald was native to the South Yorkshire area, had spent all his life in and around that area. He'd got a number of children to different women. He'd never been married. He was a building site labourer for the majority of his life, doing manual work.
I think he was either 12 or 13 when he first appeared in the juvenile court. And mostly at that time it was for things like burglary and stealing cars, and his record as he got a little older included offences of violence.
John Heald was 22 when he was jailed for the first time, serving 6 months for possession of an offensive weapon and assaulting a police officer. He spent more time behind bars aged 23 for burglary, and again at 24 for actual bodily harm.
The earlier somebody starts offending, the more likely they are to continue that offending through the rest of their life. And if their early offending is serious, then that's an even stronger relationship.
Then police discovered serious allegations against Heald in the week leading up to Bay's death. He was suspected of sexually assaulting a woman in his home county of South Yorkshire. Could this be a clue to the motive?
John Heald was a controlling individual. He was in a relationship where he was extremely jealous. That relationship had come to an end. He was unaccepting of those circumstances.
John Heald is one of those human beings who is incredibly rageful. He's built up hostility and rage towards women in particular.
Following the alleged sexual assault and afraid of the reprisals from the victim's family, John Heald fled Rotherham.
Oh, he seemed to be in a state of some paranoia. He thought that perhaps the family of the woman were after him, and he was just on edge. He was whipping himself up into a frenzy.
So Heald picked the first train station he came across, bought a ticket, and headed to Bridlington.
There was no reason apparent why John Heald would have gone to Bridlington. He talked to John Ward about going somewhere for a few days. He talked about going to the coast. I suspect he's probably just looked at where he can get a train from Doncaster to easily, and there was a Doncaster train to Bridlington.
Heald arrived into Bridlington station at 2:55 p.m. He checked into the Morayland Hotel using the pseudonym John Davies.
A desperate, paranoid, and ultimately very dangerous man. The history of violence. Ingredients for a truly horrendous set of events.
On the morning after checking in, John Heald had breakfast at the Morayland before heading to the pub at lunchtime.
He'd had conversations with both Terry and Bay Carter. He'd given a story about how he may need to move to a double room because his wife was coming to stay with him.
John Heald wants to look like an upstanding citizen, and the way he does that is to provide Bay and Terry with an idea that he's a married man, and not only a married man, one who shortly will be joined by his wife. Instantly, for Terry and Bay, that will make him seem trustworthy.
In the afternoon, Terry Carter was working on reception. 2 guests departed, and later 2 male cyclists checked in. With all his guests accounted for, Terry left the hotel around 6 p.m. to visit his mum in hospital, leaving Bay alone to complete her work. Soon after, John Heald returned from the pub.
He was drinking a lot. I think 1 or 2 people saw him later on and noticed that he did appear to be somewhat drunk.
Police believe it's this combination of drink, depression, and paranoia that gave rise to what happened next.
He was concerned about people looking for him in the Bridlington area, and he was also concerned that 2 men had come to the guest house to try and find him. He talked about a conversation that he could hear downstairs where he thought they were talking about retribution that they wanted to inflict upon him. He wanted to get out of the guest house. He'd been tapped on the shoulder.
In his paranoid state, fearing he was about to be attacked, Heald felt a hand on his shoulder. Rather than wait to find out who it was, he lashed out. Bay Carter, who had only wanted to check on him, had no chance, as Heald buried the blade deep into her chest, piercing her heart.
He turned around, he had the knife in his hand. There was some pulling and tugging with the weapon. So he stabbed her, panicked, dragged her body into room 5, locked the door, put the keys back in his room under the mattress and left.
He grabs his bag and flees the hotel.
He left the Morayland guest house as soon as he could, and he took a very direct route to Bridlington train station.
But 7 days later, thanks to an eagle-eyed member of the public, police finally caught up with Heald.
John Heald went on trial for the murder of Bay Carter and the sexual assault of an ex-partner. He accepted that he killed the victim, but denied it was deliberate and premeditated. But the prosecution had built a solid case based on compelling evidence.
But before a verdict could be returned and a sentence delivered, there would be a final twist.
John Heald was a controlling and dangerous man. The thought of someone else deciding his fate would have been unbearable for him.
My colleague, who was the DS on the investigation, he rung me. I was literally just putting my shoes on to leave the house to go to the court. And he said, I think you better sit down, I've got some news for you. All right. And he told me that John Heald had hung himself in his cell that morning.
John Heald was due to return to court this morning, waiting to hear his fate in his murder trial. Then this lunchtime, confirmation that John Heald was found hanged in his cell at Hull Prison.
He may not have been able to cope with the idea of life in prison, and it was one final act of control. You're not going to find me guilty, you're not going to put me in prison.
He sensed that it wasn't going to go in his favour, and quite frankly, I think he took the easy way out.
A jury could not return any verdict on somebody who was dead. That's a matter of law.
Left a lot of questions unanswered, left the family not knowing why Bay Carter had been killed.
Mrs. Carter's husband has sat in the public gallery throughout this trial, hearing every detail about his wife's death.
Terry Carter expressed his frustration and anger that they would never really get the answers they were hoping for.
It felt like John Heald had managed to avoid hearing the words guilty in relation to his murder of Bay Carter. A lot of murder investigations, the people are connected. There's some connection, there's some motive, there's something that you can say, this is why this happened. In this case, there was nothing like that. Bay Carter was simply a landlady in a guest house, putting her trust in people that walked through the door to stay in her premises.
Emergency. Well, yeah, I can send the ambulance and the police. She's dead. Dead. No, mate.
Listen. Stay on the line for me. Just try and calm down a bit.
Is it possible to get away with murder? What does a killer do after committing the most heinous of crimes?
There was also placed items around Sian's body that could have caused you to believe that this was a burglary gone wrong.
Do they carry on as normal and hide in plain sight?
Violently killed this woman, watched her bleed and died, and he just went round about his business as usual.
All go on the run.
He's always on foot. He had his bag over his shoulder, we had him on camera.
How do the actions of a killer, after their crime, influence the police investigation?
He thought that he'd managed to conceal all evidence of any blood on his footwear and hadn't anticipated that we would find blood on his footwear.
By focusing on the aftermath, we unpick the mindset of a killer, understand the motive, and reveal what the killer did next.
In 1998, 29-year-old Sian Roberts moved to this quiet street in Salford, near Manchester, and gave birth to a baby daughter. Sian trained as a hairdresser at a local college and soon found work, but after her father's death and a series of breakups, she began to struggle with depression. In 2015, her mother died. Having nursed her through a long illness, the loss hit Sian hard.
Sian cared for her parents up until their deaths, and this really did affect her. She suffered from depression and she really felt like she needed a fresh start.
But the local community rallied round, and by the end of the year, Sian was starting to turn her life around.
From within the community, there were people who cared for Sian. In fairness, it's no different to anywhere else. It's a diverse community.
But in November 2015, everything would change forever. Having not seen her for a couple of days, Sian's friends start to become concerned. One of them goes to her house and is shocked by what he finds.
Hello, police emergency.
But yeah, I can send the ambulance and the police. She's dead. Dead.
Right, where to, please?
St. Heliers Drive.
Sent where, sorry, sir?
St. Heliers Drive. No, mate. No.
Listen. Stay on the line for me. Just try and calm down a bit.
Just statement. No.
Who are you saying is dead?
Sian Roberts.
Sian Roberts?
She's on the floor. She was so much. She was covering up with her quilt. Now I just pulled back the quilt off her. Yeah, she's full of blood.
Where's she been bleeding from?
I can't see it, mate.
And have you checked for a pulse? There's no pulse.
No, she's dead. She's dead.
Right.
She's dead.
Within minutes, first responders arrive in the cul-de-sac.
Well, my name is Pam Mather. I've worked for Greater Manchester Police for 19 years and I currently hold the position of crime scene manager. It was on the Sunday evening. I was on a 210 shift and the DI contacted me directly and asked me to attend the scene. He explained that it was a suspicious death.
At the scene, police are met with a man claiming to be a friend of Sian's, who says he found her lying dead in her bedroom.
This is the same man who had made the emergency call from her house.
He had found Sian, and it was him that had alerted the police to attend at the property.
Whereabouts in the address is she?
She's in her bedroom on the floor. There's shit all over the place. Someone's been in it.
Right.
Someone's been in it. Obviously, someone's...
So she's on the floor upstairs in the bedroom?
We entered upstairs of the property where we were told that there was a body, a female body, on the floor in what would be the back bedroom.
When police try entering the room, it appears to be blocked.
You couldn't really enter the scene of the bedroom because the door would only open ajar. You could see just from opening that door that there was numerous items spilt around that floor: clothing, boxes, wardrobe door, footwear, scattered all around.
Police managed to break their way into the bedroom and find Sian dead on the floor.
A knife had also been placed into Sian's hand, potentially, initially making it look like she'd inflicted the wounds to herself.
Just from the injuries, from the scale, from the depth of the injury to the right side of the chest, we knew that the murder weapon was bigger than that knife in her hand.
This wasn't a suicide, self-inflicted or accidental. This was a murder inquiry.
Police launch a murder investigation, but first they need to secure the scene. The man who made the 999 call is taken to the station to give a statement.
It's quite clear from that he's very distressed at what he's seeing. He's very concerned and he's very distressed on the phone when he makes that call.
Police swiftly assess the scene before them to try to ascertain what had really gone on.
A lot of items had been tipped out and placed onto Sian's body. There was also some sex toys, a vibrator and some handcuffs.
Was this a burglary gone wrong? Or was there a sexual motive behind this brutal crime? Police then make a crucial discovery.
After Sian had been stabbed, it's quite clear that she lived for a time after, because there's evidence at the murder scene in the bedroom that Sian at some point had been sat on the side of the bed bleeding out, but of course she's found on the floor at the side of the bed.
That was denoted by the large pool of blood that was found on the floor just under the bed, which would indicate that she has been moved during or potentially after she has passed away.
It's now clear that after killing Sian, her attacker moved her body. Could her killer have then panicked and called the police?
He's fucking stupid. Are you fucking done, you stupid?
Listen, who else is in the address at the moment?
No one, no one.
Police immediately hone in on the man who found Sian.
What is your name?
My name's Joel Gordon.
The working hypothesis that we had was that Joel Gordon, who found her, was involved in the murder, following an argument.
Police immediately arrest 36-year-old Joel Gordon so they can interview him under caution to ascertain if he knows more about what happened.
A 36-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a woman was found dead in Salford. Officers were called to St Heliers Drive last night. Police say the area is still cordoned off to find out how she died.
Detectives want to know who Joel is and what his relationship is with Sian.
They were childhood sweethearts and they reconnected later on in life. People would describe them as inseparable and that they had a really strong connection.
Despite the pair having given their relationship another go, they soon split up, but remained friends and in daily contact.
Joel Gordon, a very interesting character, albeit all the family of Sian were saying he was a good influence and good for her.
When Joel is questioned by police, he maintains his innocence and explains that he broke into Sian's home after not being able to get through to her for almost 2 days.
Joel was explaining that he had found Sian and it was him that had alerted the police to attend at the property.
Joel found her. He eventually on the Sunday night, having failed to get hold of her on the phone, having failed to get a reply to the door, he goes around the back of the house and the back patio doors are open. So he goes in up to the bedroom and he finds Sian.
My name's Joel Gordon.
Joel Gordon.
He gave quite a graphic account as to how he had found Sian, what actions he had taken to see whether she'd passed away. He also was able to describe the crime scene in a level of detail that potentially somebody that hadn't taken those actions wouldn't have been able to do.
But when detectives look into Joel's background, they make a key discovery.
He has a criminal history. He'd killed someone previously.
He was in fact a man who was out on licence, having been convicted of a previous murder, which was a knife murder.
Police quickly established that Joel Gordon has already served time for murder. Back in 1997, after stabbing a teenager to death.
That person had a past which was very concerning, and that put him at the top of the list of suspects.
Because of his criminal past, police are able to keep Joel in custody while they continue their investigation into Sian's murder. When the results of the post-mortem come in, they reveal Sian suffered a brutal knife attack.
The nature in which Sian had been killed appeared to be incredibly violent to me.
She'd been stabbed 4 times. That stab wound was the fatal one in her right chest area, right side. That went in 16 centimetres deep and was 4.1 centimetres wide.
Sian's wounds also show a struggle may have taken place with her killer.
She had 2 potentially defensive injuries to her right hand, where you either grab at or try and deflect the knife that's being thrust it, yeah.
Defensive injuries make you readily aware that that person knows somebody is coming at them with a knife and they think they need to protect the vital parts of their body. That person knows that somebody is trying to, at the very least, really hurt them and probably kill them.
With Joel Gordon still in custody, forensic officers processed the crime scene, hoping to find more evidence linking him to the murder. And when they inspect the pool of blood in the bedroom where Sian was found, they find footwear marks.
In some of the clothing that was around and bedding that had been placed on top of Sian, it was very evident that there were footprints in blood. So once we'd photographed some of the footwear evidence, so footprints in blood and also latent footprints, copies of those impressions were given to the major incident team that was dealing with this job at the time.
The footwear impressions that we had seemed very consistent. Footwear impressions in blood and in Sian's blood. They were in the bathroom, they were in the bedroom, on different layers of debris that was put on top of Sian. So we knew what type of footwear we're looking for.
Police have a strong clue in the hunt for Sian's killer. Will this link Joel Gordon to the murder? As forensics decide to head back to compare the footprint with Joel's shoes, there's a development outside Sian's house.
David Morgan turned up at the police cordon and declared himself to be boyfriend of Sian, and his behaviour by the officer at the cordon was considered a bit odd.
David Morgan asks the police if the person inside the property has been stabbed. But this information has not been revealed to the public yet. It is an immediate red flag to the police.
And he was also asking who was inside the property, which, as Sian's boyfriend, he probably should have known that she lived there. So this raised some eyebrows with the police force, and they decided that they should investigate him further.
Another hypothesis was that he was involved because crimes like this, generally it's somebody known to the victim. Not always, and you do keep an open mind, but you start looking close to home first.
Police want to know more about David Morgan and his relationship with Sian. But he leaves the scene before police can question him further.
We had a phone number he'd left at the cordon. He answered once, he failed to keep an appointment. He then didn't answer his phone, so his behaviour was strange.
Detectives become concerned that David Morgan appears to be avoiding their calls. Has this man got something to hide?
We knew he knew the victim, so a decision was made to arrest David Morgan.
Police have now identified two suspects in connection with Sian's murder: an ex-partner and a current boyfriend.
When a murder takes place, it's often the people who are closest to them who've carried out the crime. So if you are a partner or an ex-partner, statistically you are more likely to be the person who's murdered them.
Police make their way to David Morgan's address to arrest him. However, upon arrival, they stumble across another man leaving the house. This man is called Glyn Williams. But before he is able to leave, detectives notice his shoes look rather familiar.
Glyn Williams was stopped by a very alert detective who said, "Who are you?" Glyn Williams. "Let me look at your feet, your shoes." So he showed him the soles of his shoes, and the officer knew that they were the same type of footwear that we were looking for from the murder scene. So Glyn Williams was arrested. So that was not just luck, it was good old-fashioned policing.
Both David Morgan and Glyn Williams have been arrested in connection with Sian Roberts' murder. Police now have 3 suspects in custody. But who is actually responsible?
So you're trying to piece together, are they involved? Aren't they involved? How can we eliminate them?
With his boots appearing to match the footprints found in Sian's blood, detectives want to know who is Glyn Williams and what is his connection to Sian Roberts.
Sian Roberts and Glyn Williams met probably 3 months prior to her murder. They didn't know each other that long. They met through mutual friends.
During a police interview, Williams describes to police a party that took place at Sian's home the night before her murder.
I was at her address on Friday, into the early hours, so about 2:45 into Saturday, and that was my last contact with any persons I've just named from the house. From there I went to... I stayed there all that night and got my head down. Saturday morning, I've gone about my business.
He was absolutely adamant. He hadn't seen Sian. He hadn't been with her.
But at the end of the day, to me, Sian's death is... I'm surprised by it, I'm shocked by it, but I'm also shocked by the fact that I'm labelled a suspect.
Yeah.
I've never had issues with Sian.
Police only have a matter of days to find evidence to charge one of their 3 suspects, or let them go. They need to piece together their movements on CCTV in the days leading up to and the day of Sian's murder.
There was quite a bit of interest from the local media now that 3 people had been arrested on suspicion of Sian's murder. People wanted to know who had murdered her and what the connection was between the 3 different men.
Police have a crucial source of information to help them crack the case. Hours of CCTV footage of Sian in the hours leading up to her murder.
So we had 4 people we needed to track on CCTV. We started to piece together the movements of Sian, the movements of Glyn Williams, the movements of Joel Gordon, and we had David Morgan. We really do go far and wide for CCTV because it's absolutely crucial and it's something that cannot be argued. It's on camera, it is what it is.
When police trawl through the local CCTV, they manage to locate video footage that reveals a group of people entering Sian's house the night before her death.
We were very, very fortunate in that we had a camera from another residence that covered the front address of Sian's house. So what that CCTV showed was events on the Friday night into the Saturday morning whereby her friends attended her property and they had a party on the Friday night.
When police watch closely, they see 5 people enter the house at 9:10 p.m, one by one. But 5 hours later, only 4 people leave. The following morning, the CCTV reveals Sian leaving her home with a man. Just after 10 a.m, they both return. They both enter the house.
One of them is Sian. The other is her killer.
Police hone in on the person seen with Sian leaving her house at 9:35 a.m, 30 minutes before she was viciously murdered. But can they identify this person? Police spread their net wider and locate multiple cameras in the local area, tracking the pair's movements before they return to Sian's house on St. Heliers Drive, 30 minutes later.
They go to a cafe called the Godfather Cafe, where they separate. Sian goes in and buys 2 breakfasts.
The other person appears to walk off up the high street, while Sian waits inside. But some minutes later, Sian's friend returns and can be clearly seen outside.
Sian sees him, they speak to each other. She waits for the breakfast to be completed cooking and then follows him to a local shop.
And when police trawl the CCTV in this local shop, they finally identify the man as 53-year-old Glyn Williams. When the police bring him in for interview, Williams doesn't know he's been spotted on CCTV with Sian.
You know, we can do this all day.
Of course we can.
When was the last time you were in that room?
Friday.
Are you absolutely certain of that?
Yes. When you get my boots back, I'm going to tell you, they're not my boot prints.
Glyn Williams denies being with Sian Roberts on the morning she was murdered, but police believe the CCTV footage proves otherwise. And when the DNA results from the footprints found in Sian's blood come back, they point to one clear suspect.
The footprints that are found in that address, in blood, okay, in blood, have been identified as being a match to the footwear seized from you.
That doesn't make me the murderer. Does it?
It was Sian's blood on his shoes. Once we presented him with that, he then came up with the story of he found her. He went in the back patio doors and he found her in that state. He didn't ring the police because he thought he would get arrested for murder.
Glyn Williams now changes his story. Having initially claimed he last saw Sian on Friday night, when she was still alive, he now tells police he discovered her dead and panicked, fleeing the scene without reporting it, something he claims he is ashamed of.
What happened, Glyn?
On the Sunday, I wait to Sian's. I've gone in through the back doors. I've seen blood. I've walked all the way around it. And I've come back out. And that's the truth.
Is that the truth, though?
Yeah, it is the truth.
Is that
I didn't want to be seen as a coward.
Detectives re-look at the CCTV to see if Glyn Williams actually left the house shortly after finding Sian's body. But they quickly discover he did not leave her house until several hours later.
Sian's dead, okay? And you told us that the last time you were with her was Friday night into Saturday morning, all right? The big significance of that is you're on CCTV with her hours and hours and hours after you told us you were.
Yeah, but
what's the reason that you didn't tell us about that? It's important, no more lies. There's no reason for you to lie.
I wasn't telling you lies, I just didn't tell you everything.
You just didn't tell us the truth.
CCTV and DNA evidence put Glyn Williams at the scene of the murder around the time it was committed. But who is Glyn Williams? How did his path cross with Sian's? And why would he want to kill her?
Sian had a troubled life. She got involved in drugs early in her life. Her family, her sister, had tried to help her give up drugs. She'd even been living at her sister's house in the weeks prior to her death in an effort to go cold turkey, to give up the drugs. But that had failed. And she'd left her sister's house and gone back to her group of friends and drug taking.
During this time, Sian was introduced to Glyn Williams.
Sian and Glyn knew each other because of their common use of drugs. They were both drug users, and hence, from that, had a very chaotic lifestyle.
People would say that Sian was a very friendly and lovely person who had a lot of friends, but perhaps after the death of her parents, she was a bit lonely and she liked to invite people into her house.
Our view is that he killed Sian very shortly after they returned to her house on the morning of Saturday the 28th of November. They went in with their breakfast, they didn't eat them. There was only one sausage that had a slice taken out of it, and the fork that had used had Glyn's DNA on it. He then spends approximately the next 7 hours in the house, compromising the crime scene, disguising it, positioning Sian's body.
Following this, Glyn Williams stays in the property and attempts to remove himself from any traces of the crime.
In the bathroom, we actually found DNA evidence to suggest that Glyn Williams had actually been in that bathroom, potentially bleeding. We found a diluted blood stain on the windowsill of the bathroom, which turned out to be a mixed profile DNA sample from both Sian and Glyn Williams.
Glyn Williams remains in Sian's house for several hours.
He's waited for the cover of darkness. He leaves via a neighbour's garden, so he's hopped over a couple of back garden fences because we have him on CCTV coming out. And from there, he then just resumes his normal daily business of going buying drugs, going mixing with drug takers and socialising with people.
The following day, Williams meets up with friends and makes himself known to Sian's current boyfriend, David Morgan.
He wants information, he wants to see if the police are going to get close to him. So he's befriended David Morgan and presented himself as a friend of Sian's when that actually wasn't true.
But it's this new friendship which leads Glyn Williams right into the arms of the police.
Police have 3 men in custody, but all the evidence is pointing to Glyn Williams as being Sian's killer. But with Glyn claiming he was in the property but did not murder Sian, detectives need irrefutable evidence before they can charge him. Police interrogate Joel Gordon and David Morgan and are told by both men that they had in fact been calling Sian for 2 days before she was found.
Police follow this through and check the phone records of Joel Gordon and David Morgan during the 29th of November.
Some of the telephone evidence was really important. They were making calls to Sian, and even though at the murder scene the phone was there, but the SIM card had been taken out, the battery had been taken out by Glyn Williams. It was the phone calls going in to try and locate Sian from Joe Gordon and from David Morgan that certainly helped us to eliminate them from the investigation.
Police release the 2 men. They need to build their case against Glyn Williams. After exploring all the evidence, police now know their killer is sitting right in front of them, and detectives are prepared to offer him one final chance to confess the truth.
I told you the truth to the truth.
You said consistently that you left Sian's house in the early hours of Saturday morning and did not see it again. For 2 days you maintained that interview, yeah? It's now transpired in a subsequent interview that you have attended her address and you found her deceased.
He isn't commenting, he isn't responding. His body language demonstrates quite a lot of arrogance. It's almost as if he's resenting. How dare you question me about this?
You state that you exit Sian's
I'll
house.
go back to my cell, finish with the fucking interview. Smash the fucking room up and I'll get me back to my cell. Now.
Right.
He deflected anything that pointed evidence at him by simply either not answering it or saying you've got it wrong in interview.
It's like 7 fucking murdered her.
Yeah.
Listen to what I'm saying, watch me lips very carefully. I'm going to say this one last time. I have no reason to hurt Sian.
With Glyn still denying his involvement, police need to decide whether to charge him or release him. But then new DNA results come in, and it's a game changer.
Glyn Williams' cellular material was found under Sian's fingernails. Significantly to that is, on arrest, Glyn Williams had some scratch marks on his throat that indicated that Sian had scratched him during the struggle and the altercation that took place.
This evidence proves to police that Glyn Williams must have fought Sian that morning, after they returned with their breakfast. And that, in a fit of rage, he stabbed her to death. And yet, even with all the evidence stacked against him, police do not have a clear motive for the crime. But friends of Sian revealed to detectives that she had to fend off Glyn's unwanted advances.
Glyn was attracted to Sian. He was attracted to her and wanted to go into a relationship with her.
Glyn Williams was telling people that he loved Sian and he wanted to marry her, but it turns out he was actually giving her gifts of jewellery that belonged to other people.
And it appears it wasn't just other people Glyn was stealing from. Police believe he had started to steal from Sian. And on the morning of her murder, they believe he was trying to sell jewellery he had stolen from her house.
He had disposed of some of her property earlier that day. He'd passed on cheap items of jewellery in a shop in Cheetham Mill, and he is seen on CCTV going into that shop, bending down, opening his rucksack as Sian comes back to meet him with their breakfast.
Police interview the shop worker seen present in this footage, who confirms that Glyn Williams was about to show him some jewellery, but is interrupted when Sian walks in.
I think Glyn Williams' violence towards Sian was probably escalated because he was stealing from her, and she's probably found him. That's what we believe. And Sian is not somebody who will sit back and accept that. She will have challenged him for sure.
Police believe that when Sian confronted Williams, it caused the argument which erupted into violence and led to her untimely death.
Police have everything they need to charge Glyn Williams with the murder of Sian Roberts. He now faces a murder trial, and a jury will ultimately decide his fate. But this isn't the first time Glyn Williams has been linked to a crime. His life is in fact a story of crime.
He's a career criminal, you know, from the 1970s. He's been thieving, he's a burglar, he's many events of burglary, some minor assaults.
From what we do know of Glyn Williams, he, from a young age, got involved in petty crime and drug abuse. He was in and out of prison for burglary and, over time, became a prolific burglar.
And his criminal backstory didn't stop there. 25 years before Sian's murder, the Manchester prison riot lasted for 25 days.
The shocking revelation was that this man was a key figure in the Strangeways riots, the longest prison revolt in British history. So it's no surprise that someone who was exposed to violence from such a young age would be able to go off and do something like this in later life.
Glyn Williams' history is littered with rebellion. He doesn't care for authority. The riots that he took part in were violent, they were sustained, they were prolonged, and it was all about saying no to the rules and regulations. If you think about him in society in general, that's how he lives his life. He rejects the norm, he rejects morality, and he does exactly what he likes to do.
The trial into the murder of Sian Roberts begins at Greater Manchester Crown Court. The prosecution present every detail of the evidence against Glyn Williams. But even with this stacked up against him, Glyn Williams denies it all.
The defence tactic in this trial was to blame anybody and everybody except Glyn Williams. But his favoured line was that the killer was Joe Gordon, a convicted killer.
Throughout the course of the trial, Williams disrupts the courtroom.
He, on occasions, wouldn't come out of his cell. He'd sacked 2 lots of counsel who were representing him.
That shows his power need. He wants to control everything. If it's not going his way, he will create a diversion so that he can hopefully regain that power and control.
And Williams' behaviour reaches new levels of barbarity.
He actually throws his own excrement at his defence team. That is absolutely unheard of, the fact that somebody would act that way in court. But it draws us into his personality trait. And that's how he's lived his life, disrespecting rules, regulations, and authority. And in this scenario, where he had little control, it was the only way to draw attention back to him.
In February 2017, the trial into the murder of Sian Roberts comes to a close. The jury have reached a verdict.
The jury came back with their verdict and they found him guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to 21 years.
He would not accept his guilt. He was absolutely dishonest, despicable character.
He is just someone who is in denial of what he's done. He has done it. There is no question of that.
But even with the case now closed and Glyn Williams locked behind bars, nothing will alleviate the pain inflicted upon Sian's family.
What's really sad about this case is that Sian represents so many people out there, good, compassionate, loving humans who unfortunately find themselves in the throes of a serious drug addiction.
The most tragic thing about this case is that Sian simply got involved in the wrong crowd. She was trying to kick her drug addiction for her daughter, but she could never manage it, and this is where she ended up.